Good evening, Tobago, and welcome to our first virtual pre-budget consultation. Make it make sense. Over the past 3 weeks, we have been meeting with several subgroups to ascertain the needs of each sector within the Tobago economy. And while some of these consultations are face-to-face, such as the ones we will have tomorrow with the construction sector in the morning at 10 a.m. and the wider private sector at 1 p.m. tomorrow, we have decided that we will do a series of virtual consultations to allow for greater inclusivity and participation. And we're just calling it Make It Make Sense. Tonight is the first of 7 such virtual consultations that I will host in the lead up to the budget. A mammoth task, considering that I have a team working well into the night, every night, as we analyze and prepare the budget report to be presented and debated in the House later this month. These consultations are being broadcasted via Tobago Channel 5, Tobago Updates, along with its partner stations M&E TV, Channel 20, and Gael Channel 7. We have the Facebook pages of the Office of the Chief Secretary, the Division of Finance, Trade and the Economy, and several social media pages belonging to the THA. And we'll be taking questions and comments from all of these pages. Tonight, we start with our women folk. And first up, we have Tanil Harilal, who is a senior retail banking professional, and she holds the position of bank manager at First Citizens Bank, Canaan branch. She has been in the banking industry for 15 years. So young, but I've been this banking professional for 15 years. And Tanil concentrated her studies in banking and finance at the undergrad level, institutional innovation and effectiveness at the graduate level, and is currently reading for a chartered banker MBA. She understands the importance of self-development, performance management, and creating a solid foundation with hard work and excellence. She is family-oriented and the biggest cheerleader of 2 boy children, 2 boy pitney. Tanil is a Toastmaster. She enjoys contributing to society, and she welcomes interacting and meeting new people, communicating her vision, supporting her colleagues as she continues her journey of becoming a memorable team player, might I say a leader as well. And I must add, if you did not know, Tanil from Charlottesville, and we used to travel in the same Sugar Maxi to Tong, to come to school to Tong a long time. And it's good to see her as a leader in the economic space in Tobago. Next to Tanil, I have a former student of mine. So we were students on the same Maxi. Now a student I taught at Spacer High School, 6th form, Yulani Fletcher. And Yulani is the founder and CEO of Caribbean Craze, a specialty dessert bar company located here in Tobago. Ms. Fletcher recently completed a BA in Business Administration, Marketing, and she has leveraged that training in order to become the marketing coordinator of Zero Business Group and the global head of future marketing and promotions at Future Focus Empowerment Institute International. You may not know it, but Yulani won several awards and fellowships, including the THA BDU Business Writing Competition 2019. So she has been with BDU and in finance, Division of Finance for a while, and also the Shell Live Wire Accelerator Program in 2020. And in her spare time, she enjoys baking and is passionate about youth empowerment and entrepreneurship. So welcome, Yulani. And next to Yulani, we move from a former student of mine to a teacher at my alma mater, Ansi.
Ansi House. Yes, see the blue, right? Yes.
Ansi, right? So we have Alana Allen, and Alana Allen is a multi-award winning personality recognized for 15 years of service in mentorship, youth leadership, and youth service. Alana has a track record of success. Her work throughout the years has touched the lives of hundreds of persons. As a result of her ability to get the best out of others, you founded Evolve, which is a personal development and money mastery platform. In March 2021, I could still remember when you launched out that company. And what is beautiful is that you're a business educator with a master's degree with distinction in economics and a bachelor's degree with honors in economics and management. And you are also a certified financial education instructor. You're a personal development coach. You are a money coach. You are a business coach. You are a mentor, youth advocate, motivational speaker. You are the Monks in George Police Youth Club leader. So you wear many, many hats. And of course, you're stylish. You're into fashion. I mean, different and see how to be fashionable.
Amen.
And undisputedly, you know, your education background, colorful personality, training, and experience makes you the ideal person to help others evolve.
Yes.
And that's what it's about, transforming lives.
Amen.
So welcome to you.
Thank you.
And then finally, we have our moms in the midst. And we have Miss Lorita Bisuna. When I call Miss Bisuna, I say, where I find that surname there? She tell me she mommy was Spanish. Or something so Spanish? Right. And everybody knows Miss Lorita as Pam Pam. And Pam Pam is a fun-loving mother of 8. 52 years old. She's from James Street in Goodwood, but now she's residing in Lekoto and having attended both Goodwood Methodist School and Guy's Commercial School. That's before our time, young people. You have worked in the service sector for most of your life, and we'll talk about the service sector in a short while. And this includes being a caterer for the elderly, a cook and a cleaner at a popular hotel, a maid within the THA, and currently you are employed in the CPEP program. And although life has not been easy, you have just taken all your life experiences, bottled them up, and you're here tonight to offer us nuggets of advice, and we're just happy to have you. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen who are joining us, our theme is, who in the kitchen does feel the heat? Who in the kitchen does feel the heat? And yes, forgive us if we eating tonight. We have some lovely stuff. Should I say I prepare them? No, I did not prepare them at all. So I did not feel the heat in the kitchen today. Kenya Johnson of Longshon prepared all these lovely delicacies, including this cocoa tea, panna cotta, you know, local chocolate stuff. But really and truly, the colloquial expression, who in the kitchen does feel the heat, really means that only those who are in the midst of a tumultuous situation, those who are in the middle of the thing, does really understand it and have an appreciation for what they're going through. And tonight we are going to explore women's issues that require our attention in the upcoming budget. And let me tell you, we have staffers who are taking notes of the comments, the questions being raised, the suggestions that we're giving. So we're not just talking. We want to have this virtual conversation so that we could include you, so that all of you, wherever you are, can contribute. And my task is to really just listen to these beautiful women as they tell me what are the things I must consider as I prepare the budget to be presented in the House later this month. According to United Nations, women's economic empowerment includes women's ability to participate equally in existing markets, their access to and control over productive resources, access to decent work, control over their own time, lives, and bodies, and increased voice, agency, and meaningful participation in economic decision-making at all levels, from the households to the international institutions, and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly goal number 5, to achieve gender equality, goal number 8, to promote full and productive employment and decent work for all, and also goal number 1, on ending poverty, goal number 2, on food security, goal number 3, on ensuring health, and goal number 10, on reducing inequalities. And so tonight, these ladies will let me explore with you, our virtual audience, how we plan for the economic empowerment of our women and girls. We will explore issues in healthcare, education, skills training, employment opportunities, poverty reduction, among others. Economists know that, and you did economics, you doing business, And you have lived our economy for 52 years. And economists anywhere in the world know that women economic empowerment tends to boost productivity, it tends to increase economic diversification and income equality, in addition to other positive development outcomes, especially given that many of our households are women-led households. But as we get started, we ask my love Pam Pam here to do a task for us this week. Pam Pam has a family of 10, and she's employed with CPEP as an unskilled worker with a salary of $991.90 per fortnight. So we asked her to make some groceries because we wanted to see what are her observations. We wanted to see how she selects items from the shelf, what's her rationale, what's her reasoning, and how she manages her monies. And of course, this $991.90 is before the increase Oliver gets, I think effective July the 4th. So, and during the show, I'll explain even more so the justification for why that is needed. Because at the lowest level in CPEP, we have workers with $991.90 per fortnight. So after 2 weeks, the income of these women, because CPEP tend to have a lot more women employees than men, the income for a significant number of those at the lowest end is $991.90 after 2 weeks. So in a month, that is literally what?
A little over $2,000.
Correct, a little over $2,000. So let's look at what Pam Pam did earlier this week. She went to her supermarket of choice. So let's look at that.
The cost of living in Tobago is very high. Very, very high. Make it make sense. Now I'm working for at least $900 a fortnight. And I have a very big family. My family is 10 of them. Now, food items is very expensive in Tobago. So, I had my budget. I live from paycheck to paycheck. Every fortnight, I come to the grocery and I take up the important things that I need, like flour, sugar, oil, ketchup, toothpaste, soap, garlic, toilet paper. Well, actually, when I baking, I just make at least 6 bread, 2 days in a week. So I just bake on a Friday and I bake on a Wednesday. It's a bit more economical for the family. No, this toothpaste is about $23. It's not an expensive toothpaste. Now what I do is I just shop around and take up the cheapest thing that I see in the grocery. Just for the money to eat. The reason why I like to buy this rice is because if I boil some of this tonight and I don't put it in the fridge, it will remain so I can eat some tomorrow also. Some of the rest of rices and them, when you boil them by the time in the morning, it starts smelling. So this is a brand of rice that I like. I hardly just buy meat because I have some children, they don't eat chicken. So when meat is concerned, they more eat like peas, fish. They like fish. All right, let me walk around here so I'll show you why I wouldn't buy the peas in the tin. No, these peas are very economical. When I buy 2 of this, it will last me very long because it's the size of family that I have. No, I wouldn't buy the tin because of the cost of it. I might have to use about 3, 4 when I use half of this. So this will give me about 2 cooking. I feel this is it. Things that I really looking for, probably just realize they're now stocking up. For economical reason, I come to cost cutters because their groceries are cheaper than most of the groceries around. And for a poor woman, a family of 10 that I have, I come to cost cutters every fortnight. Every fortnight I spend at least $800-900. I live to paycheck to paycheck. Like how I buy the sack of flour, next fortnight I don't have to buy a sack of flour. I wouldn't have to buy a sack of flour next fortnight. But like basic things that, like simple things that I didn't get here, next fortnight, I'll have to buy it. So most of the time, my money I'm working for is actually to make grocery for me and the smaller kids and them and my grandchildren. $900 a fortnight is not any money to live on at this present time. The cost of living in Tobago is very high. Very, very high. Make it make sense.
So, welcome back, and you're a magician, you know. It's Pam Pam, you're a magician. Because when I think of your reasoning and how you select your items in the supermarket, I felt, and that's how the executive felt, that we had to do something and that we could not wait on a direction from Trinidad in terms of what they are doing with their employees. We felt we had to do something for you all. And the European workers are actually remunerated far less, lower than the CPEP actually. But you are clever. You're very smart. Because I heard an explanation about the rice. Why you pick this brand of rice? Because it has a better shelf life and able to cook it. And even if you forget it outside, you know, sometimes I leave food for the children and them to take out their food. They come home, they watch TV, they play, they forget the food on the stove. It ain't gonna spoil. Next morning, you talk about the rationale for buying the dry peas as opposed to the canned peas. But the dry peas is cheaper by the pound. And you just have to do more elbow grease and take a little while to bust them dry pigeon peas and so on. So you use it as an alternative. Thankfully, they're training like the meat. They don't like the chicken so much, so they like fish. Good country, Pitney. Good country, China, good fish, and so on. And so I admire your efforts and how you're able to be crafty with it. But these are real issues our women face, not so?
Yes, that's really.
And I want to start with you, Tanil, because you are a banker. And you have customers, a lot of customers like Pam Pam, women, trying to navigate life with that. Out of that, what they're given, is there real hope for financial stability? Are there things they can do with the little that they have to be able to not just get by, but be able to save something, to be able to put something away for rainy day, maybe? What can they do?
Well, thanks, Fali, for that question. One thing that I want to see is that budgeting is important for everyone. I myself follow Ms. Pam Pam on a fortnightly basis to visit the grocery with my list and stick to the list and to ensure that I empower myself by having choice, but a balanced choice at that. So while it is small, and I remember all the stories my grandfather used to tell me about how they came up on the very little and things like that, while it's not very comfortable for all, it is a start. And I know with continuous discussions like these, we will be able to hear how we can make the different changes. So yes, the situation seems a little grim, Ms. Pam, right now, but understanding well, necessity is the mother of innovation and invention. And when you have what you have, you budget. And I had to learn that when I stayed at Trinidad. I was in Trinidad for about 2 years for my personal study. And it's only then I learned what Miss Pam Pam is living. And to me, while it is an important understanding to budget, it is also a good economic empowerment for women to have better choices. So some of the things that we can probably do and been thinking of is, learn a skill. So while you have the CPEP, you also have other things that you could trade. There was a nice bartering environment we had a few years back, understanding that, okay, we're not going to stay here for the CPEP, but we are doing other things to enhance and develop our living situation. So I understand the budgeting. It is encouraged for all, every single person, encouraged for all. It could be $5, it could be $1, it could be 50 cents. If we inculcate that from the very young, my sons, they have to do chores to earn money. Yes, it's not just lying down on the ground. There's $1 to pick up your toys. There's $1 to yes. When you come in and tell me you have $5 ice cream sale, did your chores and we tally it up. So at the end of the day, budgeting is one thing. So you are already 50% ahead of a lot of people because we don't really budget or understand the importance of budgeting. So you're already ahead of the game, Ms. Pam.
But Pam, with the increases we want to give you all for CPEP, right? I'll show you here the news. We're going to put a little extra, you already receive $50 extra per day, right? So on your salary. So it will take you up a notch in terms of how much you will get at the very lowest end. What do you think that will do for you? How much that you think that will help someone like you and help your family out?
Honestly speaking, it will do a lot. Compare it with first, at least, I might try to, I'm able to save something now. The last daughter went to school.
Where secondary?
Yes, she did her subject. She had 5 subjects. She wanted to be a pathologist. So she did different subjects. She got 5. She said to me, I want to go back to school. So she repeated in, she wants 6 form in Speyside High. The only school that was accepting her.
And one of the schools that has made magic with our young people. Big up Speyside High, just say. She has Speyside High 6 form program now.
And well, she told me right now she's doing the exam. She said, Mommy, after exam, I think I will not be in senior. I'm going to forward. I need to go and start to study to be what I want to. I said, well, follow.
But that raises another issue for us in that in some of our homes, some of our families, our young people choose sometimes early employment over educational pursuits, not by choice, but circumstances sort of like force us to make that decision. I've seen many, especially young women who just decide, very talented, and they will decide, I can't get there right now. The family can't afford this right now. You're talking pathology, it means that she has to do 5 years of medicine and then specialize afterwards. And then for medical students, now it's very difficult with the gates closing in our faces as we speak. And you get more subsidy if you are at St. Augustine than if you are at the other campuses in the region. And it means that, and to get into St. Augustine now, there is now a very long wait time to get in, a long wait list to get in. So if you want to get it done now, you have to go to Mona or K-Ville or St. George's or one of those international schools like Ross and so on in the region, which is very costly. And so sometimes that means that she's going to try to work, she's going to try to save some monies, and so the dream gets delayed. Is there an economic cost to that, Ms. Allen? To delaying the dream and having to work up, is there an economic cost to that?
Yes, it is. And you're talking about the economic cost, but let's talk about the psychological cost on that particular individual. Because it's one or two things. She's going to be really motivated to want to work towards getting towards that goal. But at the same point is that goal that you want is so far away, right? And that could take a toll on her mental health. Because I've seen on many occasions where with good intention, you start working, and then you get distracted. And probably 5, 6, 7, 10 years after, you're now catching yourself. Now, the thing about it is that things are getting more expensive, things are getting harder and harder and harder by the minute. And as you were just talking about all the realities right now, it's not just for the CPEP person, things just getting harder. So with the fact that by the time she's probably ready, she may not have access to GATE, right? The way how it's going, at least not the way how we would have probably experienced it. She now has to think about at least finding something stable enough to look at other ways to fund her university life, right? It's just relying on a salary and saving might take too long. You have to look at other means. And one of the things is that what is difficult with persons who want to study, especially when they're going away to study, is financial institutions are not very receptive to persons wanting to study unless it's backed by the government. Outside of that, if your parents cannot afford to service that loan during the time, it's problems. So it can be more difficult in terms of her waiting a longer time to do it. But then now she has the opportunity to really sit down and figure out how I'm going to get towards that goal. So just the same way you're going to budget on your current income, then she needs to know from up front, okay, how much do I have to save, or how much would it cost me, and come up with a strategy in terms of how she's going to get there. But it is so much more difficult for a person where you have to now work towards it, because it's not just the economic cost you have to take into consideration. I've seen many young persons, they start working and all of that, and somewhere along...
Life happens.
And
boyfriend
that's
is coming. well,
I didn't want to put it like that, but that is exactly what I'm trying to say.
Life happens. Life happens. Whatever is life. Life happens. Sometimes death in the family. Sometimes babies come. Sometimes breakups happen. But life happens. Life is not stopping it. Life is not stopping in a moment in time to allow you time.
And then,
life happens.
And then it's now to juggle to do that. So you're probably a mom and then going to school.
And then you change your life dream. You know how many women out here have shoulda, coulda, woulda, thinking, if only this didn't happen, I could have done this, I should have done this, and then this happened, and that sometimes leads to life resentment. But you raise the issue of education and being able to afford it. The Secretary for Education, one of the things that she posited for us to look at in the bill out for the budget is reframing our training awards committee. Because we had a training awards committee. Once upon a time, we had a very robust financial assistance program. But then GATE happened, and with the onset of GATE, it meant that students were getting a full tuition paid. Now that that is being rolled back, the proposal from the Secretary for Education is that we resume having a robust program, that we put some sufficient funds in it. The last fiscal year, we had about 1 million assigned to training awards. That's not really a lot of money for the number of young people who are knocking on our doors. And so, as Secretary of Finance, advise me, Yolani, do you think it's a good step that will help women, young women especially, if we reallocate some of our funds and put a lot more money towards financial assistance of young people wanting tertiary education?
Yes, I do agree that it makes sense, because as you mentioned, with GATE going out the door, they'll need some other form of access to get their tertiary education. So having this new or refurbished allocated money going to this sector would assist them more further, I guess.
But I think the educating of persons need to happen in the sense of a lot of persons run to tertiary level education, but then we're ignoring the skills and what it can do for individuals. So we also need to spend some time in terms of informing women as well of what are their options. Because even with the assistance that the THA gives, it was only certain programs persons were getting approved for, right? And if you weren't aware of it, then again, you're not going to benefit from it because your study doesn't necessarily fall in line with the areas in which you want to offer financing, right? But even so, yes, we want persons to be doctors and lawyers and whatnot, but some of those professions are saturated and the world is changing and growing. In different industries are opening up and would have opened up since COVID-19. And we now need to refocus or broaden the horizons in terms of what opportunities we have out there. Because one of the things with the THA is, yes, you want to put more money towards helping persons on the tertiary level, but you want to invest it in such a way that it could take us, help the growth and development. So we need to get our women in places and spaces where it makes sense. We talk about make it make sense. It has to make sense because you fund a degree for how many years? You know how many young women at home and can't get employed and they are properly educated, but there is no room or no space right now. So yes, we want the funding. Of course we want the funding, but we also want to start opening up the doors in terms of what are some alternatives or what are some other areas that you can focus on that you could make a lot of money and you could really become employable when you transition.
So if I get you right, you're talking about ensuring that the program is diverse. So we cater for skills training as well. Because tertiary education does not just mean leaving secondary school to go to university. It may mean leaving secondary school to pick up vocational education, which requires funding. And you're right, with the onset of COVID-19, it showed up the flaws in our thinking and our system because we thought that only the academics could make it. But what I've seen is that the individuals who are able to bounce back and who have a sense of resilience are those who could use their hand to do something. They bounce back in an instant to get some things done. And we should treat skills training, skills education with equal parity as we treat traditional academics.
But Fali, let me interject here. Let's talk about Miss Pam and how you survive, right, in this time. It's really the skills, because a lot of women, the salary not meeting up, you're plaiting here, you're baking, you're doing that, and that is what is helping to offset most of the expenses for a lot of persons, because it's not persons who are just in CPEC who are feeling the brunt. I think everybody is crying out now in terms of the increase within the grocery is so crazy, along with all the other different areas in which the cost of living is going up. And you see more and more persons trying to leverage their skills and whatever gigs that they can to make more money. And sometimes if you really sit down and look at it, the skill that you're doing on an evening, if you really invest more time in it, you're actually making more than what you're making in a day. And we're seeing that happening over and over again. But the negative connotations that we have on, okay, get a skill. Listen, my child, as much as she's going to go through the formal education system, she must be equipped with a skill. I made it through UE because I had a skill. That's how I was eating. You want to go to a little fat? You had to plait a little here, you had to do something. And that is how a lot of persons survive. So in terms of bouncing back and being resourceful, we need to have things in the back pocket that we could pull out in order to make money as well.
So Pam, what skills do you have in the back pocket to pull out?
I does electrical.
And you see that? Your boss.
Pam, I respect you.
Your boss. No, and you know, one of people might hear that we're increasing salaries to CPEP and URP, but it's not just increasing. We also want to increase productivity, and we also want to increase in terms of training. And we're going to build into the program some mandatory educational components. Because we want you to be better for it. And we want you at some point to even get up a day and decide, listen, for me, I have opportunity bigger than this. This should just be a transitionary place for me. It's just a middle ground until I could do better for myself.
I have one question.
Sure.
No. I honestly telling you, I find CPEP program is not making sense. I keep planting flowers, I can't eat flowers.
I agree.
Turn the people into agriculture. We stop buying food outside. We're bringing it from right here.
No, that's the spirit I want. So when you see the increased salary come on the front end, it's because on the back end, we are going to demand more from you all and a different line of activity. And yes, landscaping is nice and it aids in our tourism product and keeping the place tidy and so on. Make a valid point. We carry cotton.
Since I go on that project, 2 years I'm working with them.
What are you doing for the 2 years?
Nothing. That is one. 2 weeks ago, that is little before they had a little shaking up. I told the foreman, I said, listen to me. This ain't making no sense to me. I coming off of my bed to reach here for 7 o'clock to watch all you. I said, watch me, send the workers and down in the bush and we cut it and we plant cassava, tomato, by tomorrow we could pick some tomatoes.
So we could pick tomato tomorrow? So I could come down early and get some tomato tomorrow?
It might be much, I think it's just 2 trees.
That bare right now. But at least it's a start. It's a start. And that's what we're saying. That's what we want out of the program. CPEP Tobago should not look like CPEP Trinidad. We ain't trying to just go by the side of the road and brush cut a place or paint a row of stone or plant a fresh hedge of flowers. We want productive use of time.
Yeah, and but just, Farley, what you all got to come in with this, because let me tell you something. You see the people who are putting as checkers and foreman, waste that time. If I have a project to run, then workers can't come and sit on my project. I am telling you. They cannot come there and sit. You have to, for the minute you reach, you have to walk. You'll take a 5 and back to work.
I appreciate your candor and your honesty about it.
It has really hurt me to see. I tell although the money is small, it does hurt me to see. I mean, the government had picking up money from the roadside to pay. Come on.
Yeah, and that raises the issue of productivity across the space, which is an important one. Trinidad and Tobago is not known to be the most productive country in the world. When we look at our ranking on the global indices treating with productivity, we tend to rank pretty lowly on those statistics. And the question is, how do we improve productivity in our space? What do we need to do, ladies, to improve productivity in our space? To get much more out of our investments in people. Because the THA being the single largest employer on the island, we are investing in people, no doubt. But how do we get productivity for our spend?
I'll take this one. I can go back to my experience when straight out of sixth form bishops and my mom passed away sadly, and I had to make a pivot. I had to decide what I was going to do. I had a dream going to England and going into medicine. And then it was like, well, okay, I didn't have the stability there. I had to decide something differently. And that made me very wise because it opened my eyes to understand that we have to pull from what we have. And my personality is one that you blossom where you are planted. And I ended in banking. Yes, and in my own experience, development, it could be academic, it could be vocational, technical, but we have to consider the wholesome aspect of it. And if people are not comfortable where they are, or we're not dealing with key root issues, then no matter what you do, the type of program you have, the type of trade you're going to, the type of work you are, you will not be productive. So you have to root it, understand what it is. So it could go right back into the school systems as little as preschool and have a system that we shine light on mental issues that help people cope, regardless of whatever you are, we could have that support and develop people from there on out. So it can't just be, okay, we increasing here or we changing here. It's a wholesome people development. How can we then bring the best out of?
Our people as a whole.
Yes, and that is focusing on social aspects of it as well. So it's a balanced initiative. Some people might swim, some people may need floaters.
I think the mindset of Tobagonians have to change. It has to. And I could tell you, when I first started teaching in particular, and I was kind of shocked, I asked a student, what do you want to do, or what do you want to be when you grow up? He said, main swam to you. When I leave school, I'm going to get a little 10-day walk, and I'm going to pull bull. Yeah, that's what I'm going to pull bull. When I done it, and that was his big.
But when you were in school, well, Tanya, you were there just around my time.
Yes.
And they asked you that question. You're looking for the most ambitious thing to pitch for yourself.
The thing is,
oh, we got to that place.
Psychologist.
You have an even easy life. You work from 6 to probably 8 in the morning, and then you find other things to do with the rest of the day. And for me, a lot of Tobagonians, we are just so comfortable with the bare minimum, but yet we want to make demands, right, of the THA. Now, the thing is, I think that we need to have a stronger private sector, and that would help to shake things up. Because I've worked private, and I've worked public, and in the private sector, you have to be productive. You have to earn your space, right? And a matter of fact, the money that you earn is actually pegged to the work that you do. And maybe we need to have some kind of public buy-in where we want to make Tobago great, we want to move forward, we want to grow, but everybody has to realize that my contribution is going to help Tobago to grow. We're going to be more productive, because if we have more money circulating, then we all benefit. So the mindset has to move away from, I'll go to work, I ain't doing nothing, I will take 3 days to file this one report, so let's get it done, so there has to be some kind of buy-in, some kind of incentive probably to get persons to want to perform, and probably the performance pay works, eh?
Well,
It's something we could consider.
At the moment, I am considering a proposal to incentivize productivity through the public service, because the biggest challenge I have faced in the last 6 months, I think, is our work output and our ability to put speed and efficiency in the same room, or rather, our inability to put speed and efficiency in the same space is inordinately difficult to get that within the system. Something could be an emergency and it will take you a month and a half. Something could be regular time, it will take you perhaps 3 months. But that cannot be the way we do business. If it is we want to improve on the ease of doing business, if it is we want foreign direct investments, if it is we want a society that people respect us and so on. And let me be honest, I don't believe for a second the people in the space who parrot or who moot a position that Tobagonians are somehow lazy and indifferent. That is not to be why. That's not true at all, because we damn well know when to be productive and how to be productive. I have seen in this same Tobago space that at certain times in our life, we are able to pave whole roads in the middle of the night. We are able to take 10 days and build the biggest retaining wall. So how can we get that level of productivity at sporadic moments in time, but we cannot get it on a constant? It means that we just choose not to. And so my first approach is that part of the new fiscal year measure must be a plan to incentivize the public service, put award systems in place for people who perform at a high level, ensure that you recognize people for the work that they do. And I'll give you a quick example. We have in the Tobago space a lot of public servants who are acting, what they call acting. You know, the whole public service is Hollywood, so everybody acts. And so they're acting, but are not being paid their acting salary. So imagine acting, and you're acting for a prolonged period of time, but you're still being paid at your substantive. And then you may be promoted to a higher acting position, but you're still being paid all the way back at your substantive. And it arrived at a place that people started to reconsider whether they want to take the promotion to act in these positions. And it causing some friction, some bottlenecks in the system. One wife of a worker in infrastructure came and wanted anonymity, but she came to say, look, my husband has been acting in this position. The household need the money. See what you could do to ensure that they pay the acting. And why am I raising it? Because part of getting productivity is letting people know that they will be rewarded for the work they do. Working and not being rewarded for that work in itself demoralizes staff. And I also want a position where people don't have any excuse. As in, you can't come and tell me, well, you're not paying me, so we expect, right? Because they will. And if they say that to me, you're not paying me, we expect. How do I respond to that? Unfortunately, volunteerism is dead. And people want to be paid for the work. So, but it's two parts. Opinion, because I went and I got a legal opinion, and I shared it with the public service, with the chief ad, and I said, look, pay everybody the acting. The lawyers say that's what they have to do, pay them the acting. Pay them the acting, no problem. But note that in me paying you your acting, in me ensuring you are remunerated the way you ought to, I come in on the back end and demand the work. Because if you ain't get the work, then we have an issue. And of course, that means that we have to start to write people up. We have to start, just as you have awards for good performance, there must be consequences for poor performance. There must.
Yeah, but then you also need to look at the systems that are in place, because we still filing stuff. You can't find this, you can't. We need to digitize the system. And so on one hand, yes, you want to incentivize persons, but if they're in an archaic system and they don't have the right facilities, the right equipment to work, then you're wasting time at the same speed. So that had changed.
You're talking me language about digitization, because I think too many of our systems are paper-based. Unfortunately, we need an act of parliament to outlaw the mandatory nature of paper filing. However, we can digitize most of our papers, and right now Town Country Planning, for example, is doing that, all the land documents. So it means that the next time, at some point when you go to get a cadastral printed or get access to a land file, somebody ain't going to look for the physical paper where their fingers touch the paper and destroy the integrity of the paper. You know, some of these papers are centuries, years old. But it's digitized, it's easy to run a print, it can be done in 5 minutes, you can email it to somebody, put it on a flash drive, so many options. And so digitization has to be a key feature of the upcoming budget. It just must, we have to spend some money on it in order to get the system much more efficient. It means that instead of having these help desks where people physically sit down at a desk and wait on people to come in, somebody must be able to use the app. It means a woman must be able, who is in dire need of social support, should use their smartphone to request that support. And shouldn't have to leave their home, go to health, come back to town, drive down to settlements, come back to town, go look for police report, go look for fire report. This system should be digitized, which allows for multiple officers and workers in the space to treat with one request at the same time. And that will allow for greater efficiency in the space. But I want us to switch gears for a little bit, because we have been going for just under 50 minutes. And we spoke about education, we spoke about productivity, we spoke about digitization, we spoke about budgeting, we spoke about low-income earners in areas like CPEP and so on, and the need to increase their salary. We spoke about the need for them to work as well for their salaries. We spoke about young women and the schooling, and I want us to talk some health matters, health care on the island. And not that all men folk don't need health care, we do. And quite frankly, all men folk need to visit the doctors more often than we do. And when we actually feel sick, we need to say so and get medical help instead of thinking every bush tea and every tree root you could boil. And I have some in me cupboard here. Let me see. Let me show you something that I have here. Oh gosh, I don't want to open it too big. Next thing, the thing is a rum shop I have here. But we men, we think roots and things soaking like this somehow. I mean, it's good
stuff. The longer the better, eh?
The longer the better. And this soaking a special brew I get from upland to me. If you know, you know. But we tend to think that somehow these things cure us, but they don't. Right? They don't. But in terms of healthcare and women, what are some of the pressing issues you think, Yolani, that we have to look at in terms of reforming healthcare on the island to ensure women folk, why seeing greater majority at the hospital, get the kind of attention and attendance that they need?
I really wish I could talk on it, but I can't come up with anything at this point in time. Yeah.
That's no problem at all. You've never had to engage the hospital also?
Yes, I did, and
how was
the experience, it wasn't nice in terms of the long wait and the period to actually see a doctor. So you go, you might have to pull a number, you sit down and wait, even if you set an appointment. So if I have an appointment set for a specific time, I actually try to go 2 hours earlier because you're not getting the actual time that you set the appointment. You have to pull a number, you have to sit down, you have to wait for your name to call, and then you have to go in. So it's a really long and tedious process.
But Chief, what I would like to say on the topic of health is that we need to start educating our young women a lot more and have certain things in place. For instance, I've realized that a lot of women are suffering from like polycystic ovaries and those kinds of afflictions now more than ever. Almost every female that I speak to, let's say 1 in 3, they have problems like that. And a lot of them aren't even conscious or aware that they're walking around with cysts and fibroids, and it seems as if the age is getting younger and younger and younger, and it's something that is really prevalent amongst black persons and women from the Caribbean. So whether it's our diet or whatnot, there must be some education and sensitization for it. And even when you visit our public healthcare system, it's not just the wait time, it's the time for treatment. So you come here, they send you here, it takes forever, a machine isn't working, you have to do this, and sometimes you're talking about women who might be at the lower income level, they may not be able to afford, to go to a private doctor to get an ultrasound done, a pap smear. So even though some of these things are available in the public sector, is when, right? It is when you could get access to it. The access to me is still far off because it takes so long sometimes to get treatment. But the sensitization needs to happen because it's only for a lot of women you realize that when they're trying to have kids and they start to get older, you're seeing the problems popping up, but it's things that they would have been carrying for years. I'm hearing students telling me that they're suffering with fibroids. Imagine that. It's serious. So it has to be something with the diet or lifestyle, but we need to start having those conversations.
We need to have strong public.
Yeah, prevention is better than cure.
Yes, and more focus on preventative maintenance.
Yeah, preventative
and not just
measures.
waiting until something is happening, your ear hurting you, and then you're going up. But also understanding the services available, because a lot of people show up at the hospital. This is the emergency section, not understanding that, well, they can visit health centers. So you're there, and the emergency is supposed to deal with emergent situations. So they will, of course, take the emergent situations and leave you there waiting. Whereas, do you know that the health center is probably open till 8 o'clock? I didn't know that until I had a situation. But those are things that should be more in the space. This is what we have available for you. We used to focus on baby vaccinations. Well, I have 2 sons. And there are certain times you check your card and you know you must go to the clinic, you know they must get their shots. But after that stage, everything falls off.
Yeah, it does.
When last have we gone to the health center just for a regular check?
It falls off. And you're correct, it falls off after, let's say, after common entrance at least, or C, I'm an old school person. after that vaccine, it falls off. There isn't any kind of checks and balances or monitoring, and probably if you have to travel, then you'll probably look at your immunization card and you do certain things in between. But you are correct. We should be able to follow persons throughout their different life, those checkpoints in life. When they reach a certain age, let's do this, that, and carry them through all the way up to Miss Pam. Right, so Miss Pam is supposed to be getting your pap smear done, and your this, that, and you know, and where you're going, and all of that. That is it.
All the kids to do the same.
Exactly.
But this digitization helps with that which you're talking about, with having that record keeping throughout. And one of the things I saw pop up in the chat, people thinking, outlaw paper. No, it's not outlaw paper. Outlaw the mandatory use of paper. What that means is that we have to start accepting digital records in addition to paper. So of course the paper will be there, you won't throw away the paper, but allow for the use of digital platforms, because there are some things that, for example, when you, if we digitize our healthcare records properly, and there is some of that happening in the system, because I remember my mother was ill, when we go up by the fort, where there's a clinic for oncology there, the doctor there is able to pull the file. When we return to Scarborough General, the doctor is able to pull the file there. That has to happen throughout the system, inclusive of the health centers and all clinics that we have on the island. Even if you are a private medical practitioner and I as a client, I come by you as a private clinician, you should be able, with my permission, have access to my file, so that there is an easy flow, so that wherever you go, the doctors know what's wrong with you. Even if you went by a private doctor and you walk in town and you fall down, you drop down dead, well, you ain't dead yet, but you drop down and they take you up to the hospital, somebody should be able to trace your record and know, well, okay, she was seeing this doctor outside of the system and she was being treated for X, Y, and Z. And so we could now do the necessary follow. So is that those kinds of benefits we want from digitization? Not that you should have absolutely no paper, but that paper should not be the only lawful report tender, more or less, that we should have in the systems. I hope that makes it clear. But we have mothers here. Younger mothers, older mother, no children like myself, prospective mother, right? But how was that birthing experience for you, that experience with our healthcare system? Because one of the most important rules of our women, not the only one, but one of the most important rules of our women is that reproductive rule, the role of bringing new children into this world. And so our healthcare system have to be able to meet that need, if nothing else, because it's an extremely important function that you have to play. So how was that experience for you all?
Fortunately for me, the hardest part is the actual action of
delivery.
The delivery.
Okay, that's good.
But from the my first son, I was seen to at the Charleville Health Facility by Miss Voy, and the experience was good. You got your book, you got all your lectures, you understood exactly what you needed to do. I forewent Lamaze, but the idea was I got the information, and I think maybe it's because I came from the community, and it's a community base, so of course nobody is going to watch you go astray and not support. So I got that, and as you were speaking and everybody contributed, an idea came, because it's like, okay, we have to start community based as well. It's not so much just the government alone or just the private sector or individual, is a mass of us, and a community base. I could not go, Miss Boy, see me doing something that I wasn't supposed to do, and she not tell me, hey, you're not supposed to do that. Don't do that. Don't treat her babies. Don't treat her babies badly. So I had that lovely experience. I went to the TRH up at the hospital there. I felt like if I was in a hotel, It was a really good experience.
And I'm so happy to
I tell
hear
you,
that.
the hardest part was the actual
delivery.
action. So,
The delivery.
so that was my experience.
Alana, what was your experience?
Traumatizing. So traumatizing as if I don't think I want to even go back there.
To it, okay.
I'm telling you, I was traumatized. My experience was not so nice. You know, my pregnancy at one point was at risk, and I was on bed rest and having to make several visits to the hospital on an emergency basis. And I know I'm not feeling well, only to be given Panadol and sent back home, and then to go back the next day. And then, you know, I had the issue of bleeding during pregnancy, which was, you know, very high risk. And even that wasn't resolved. We had to go to a private institution in Trinidad to help deal with that whole situation. I tried Lamaze because I was a first-time mother and I was so excited for it. This was the old hospital, and I went on 2 occasions, and every time it was cancelled. And then that just threw me off. And then in the actual delivery, I was like, boy, should I have gone to Lamaze class, because I really can't make right about now, right? But, you know, everybody's experience is different. But I think for me, why it was so hard, the process of it, because it's not just the act of giving birth, it's everything from the first visit, etc., etc., etc. So because of the complications involved in my pregnancy, they took me out of the village health center system, and I had to go to the hospital, and even that it wasn't a good experience for me, right?
So it means that we have to work a lot more on that customer service. And I know in the public service, we tend not to see those that visit us as customers, as clients in that sense. And sometimes we treat it as just a duty we do, but we have to work on that kind of customer service as one element, but there are others. Just last week, when I was at Speyside in the constituency, a mother came to me and she asked if we could do anything about A&T. I even called Dr. Faith around the same time because she was saying when we deal with nose, throat, that they have to engage practitioners from Trinidad. Some parents have to go to Trinidad. Sometimes a practitioner comes up and then you pay extra, and she was telling me that she owes this doctor some money because she's paying some and all of that. So I've asked Dr. Faith to look at it, and when I called her, she said, we're already looking at that, Chief. We're already strategizing for a way to treat with that. So we know that there are some gaps that we have to work on in terms of healthcare, but we will have an even longer conversation about healthcare and what that means. But before we move off of healthcare, Pam for women at your age, are there any health-related issues that you want us to talk about? Because these youngins, they have a different experience to you. But of course, as you climb the ladder and you become much more ripe and mature, the issues vary may vary for you. Are there any issues that you want us to look at?
The only issue with the health system is that I find when you go to the hospital, it takes too long for a doctor to actually see you. You go into a hospital, especially this one up there now. You go there, you put your name here, you have to go back outside, then they call you back again, they know testing your pressure, then you go back out again. The system up there, they need to do something about it.
I've been trying to look at public healthcare models around the world, because we are not the only one. We didn't invent public healthcare models. There's free public healthcare in the UK, Canada to some extent. Several countries within the Commonwealth has that system. Of course, the opposite of that is the United States of America and the very pay-as-you-use kind of system. Have to have your health insurance, have to have it in a big way. And in looking at models that exist around the world, one of the challenges with free public healthcare is always that time factor. And how do we ensure that we could reduce the wait time? And I don't think I have the answers immediately, and I know when I have that conversation with medical professionals, they may have some suggestions that we can use because they are in the system working day to day, every single day, and they will know what are the things that are causing the system to clog. Because I've been there at times when it looks as if nobody is at the hospital, the wait room, as you say, the A&E looks empty, but you still wait on in a long time. So clearly there is something not gelling right there, and we have to fix it. We have to work on making the fixes. But I love where we're going in terms of community health. I personally would love to see a lot more happen in and around community health centers and what they mean. You know, I've always argued that community health centers should not just be the place I go for Dr. Day. You know, I don't know what you call it in tongue, but I always call it
That's what we call
Dr. Day. You go to Dr. Day, you test your vitals. I haven't been to Dr. Day in a while, but the last time I was there, you test your vitals. The pharmacist might come up on that day as well, so you may get some medications, some refill of medication, and you go home. And I always asked about community health. I want to see greater presence of mental health, accessibility through the community. I carried a motion to the House about 2 years ago on that matter, and I was shocked to learn that, you know, we have our mental health officers, but their districts are so large, so enormous, it's difficult for them to get around. They had ambulances that weren't working well. They were grossly short-staffed. So there is that. I want to see a lot more demonstration of health living. You talked about preventative health care. The THA perhaps need to put some of its resources into public health education, teaching people how to cook the foods we love healthier.
Yes.
And maybe in settings like this, you come and we bubble a pot. And that, you know, there are ways we could cook some of our favorite foods in much healthier versions, and teach people that you can't eat harvest food every week. Because if you eat harvest food every week and you drink rum every week and beers every week, you end up in problems. Your health will deteriorate.
To eat healthy is very expensive, you know. To eat healthy is very expensive.
Well, you made a very valid point there. Eat
Very, very
because vegetables and fruits.
Unless you're growing your own.
Well, yeah, that's what we have to do. That's what we have to do. Grow what you
But
eat
sometimes
what you
now
grow.
you have mothers who doesn't have the time.
Yes, with the child care.
And then again, we just have some men. I'm not bashing any men.
It's women night, right? So if it was the truth, it's women
We
night.
just have some men and all day they lie down. They go to work, they come home.
productive.
You need to dash out on them in this, sir.
Lord, sometimes really hard.
Men folk, I hope you're hearing it. You can't lie down whole day. You can't sit down on the road by the block and play cards whole day. You can't sit down and lie with your bedroom and them below the house whole day. Do something, chuck something in the ground, plant something.
I make a joke
It
with my
will.
biggest daughter, and she's so vexed with me. Sometimes she doesn't know she vexed, she's seriously. I just make a joke. I say, girl, it's not time for you to give me a grandchild before I die. Who tell me to ask the girl that? Why?
But Fanny,
You vex it. Young people stay already. Young people stop already.
you know, Tani, you brought up a serious point, and it's something that we really need to consider. And it speaks about women and their productivity in particular, and us wanting to contribute but cannot because we have to juggle a household as well. And nobody talks about that enough in terms of having women need to be present in the home just as much as they need to be present in the workplace, but home comes first on many occasions. And childcare is a serious issue. So just the way that we can't even afford to make groceries, childcare is also very, very expensive, and sometimes you would have to cut back on bringing in additional income to tend to the children because you don't have that support system. So what is the assembly looking at in terms of making childcare possibly more affordable or more accessible to the working mother?
I love that question because I had an interaction over the last year, late last year into this year. There's a former student of mine, I won't call her name. She has a child, she was a UTT student, and she has a child born with Turner syndrome. And so she could not get anyone to take care of the child. Remember, she's a student now. And there are some family issues at home. So she's afraid to come back to Tobago and to living at home because she as she indicated to me, she experienced some forms of sexual abuse and she does not want, she has bad memories there. She doesn't want to return there. So she's in Trinidad, stuck. Child with Turner syndrome. Have to drop out of UTT because that child requires constant care. Someone has to be present. And she can't afford schooling plus childcare, paying for childcare. Then she gets a job at a supermarket that gave her some flexi hours. So she's able to use some hours craftily to be at the supermarket and allow the child to be with another relative. And then she returns home, take over the situation with the child. But then COVID happened. The supermarket changed the hours and was demanding more hours because people were purchasing more groceries, especially in the lockdowns and so on. And so she had to give up that job. And so she's at a place where she doesn't know where to turn. She tried to get the grants. When she tried to get the grants, she needs a child to be certified as having Turner syndrome. So the assessment has to be done. In order to do the assessment, she needs some blood work to be done. Guess what? The public labs from our hospitals are saying, look, that blood work is costly and we're not doing the blood work for that. So you have to get it done privately. She can't afford the blood work to be done. So she can't afford to be able to sign the documents properly, to be able to get the help that she needs. And so she's in a catch-22 situation, a limbo, not knowing how to move. And for the first time, I recognized that so easily a woman could be trapped in a cycle of poverty. Because she has this child, she has to care for the child. I don't even want to think of the mental condition around that situation. This is not a child that is, a woman that is done so or not talented. This is a young lady that was a university student. And one baby altered the entire course of her life. And the support system, to be honest, just is not there. It just is not there. And one of the things Dr. Faith is working on is changing the policies for accessing some of these social support. Some of the requirements are just too onerous, just way too onerous to get the support, because if she had the support, she could pay for daycare facilities at least, and she can go and work herself.
But, you know, I could add to that as well. Even our daycares are not equipped to deal with special needs children. I'm bringing this point to the fore because last week I was having an interaction with a young woman and she suspected that her child has autism. And she had to remove the child from the formal system and place her in the hands of a special needs teacher that could only take that child up to probably standard 5 level. What happens to that child after that? I also have another client whose child is on the extreme spectrum, which means that 24/7 care in terms of autism. And in daycare, the child was being abused because they just saw the child as being loud and crying and reactive every minute, but the child has a condition. And she herself cannot work because this child needs care 24/7. And how we met is because she was at the point where she was just ready to give up, right? And when you look at it, particularly for persons who have children with special needs, for mothers, those families, it's more severe for them because on one hand, this child needs special care, but our education system or daycare are not equipped to deal with children like that, right? So how is it that, yeah, the daycare would help you and me probably, but when you have a special needs child, even if you give me grants or whatnot, we need to have specialized areas that can help to care for these children. Some of these parents, they don't even have the education sometimes, or the know-how to teach these children in the way that they need to be, you know, taught and stuff like that, so that they could function at least in society.
And to be honest, it's one of those areas that I am losing some sleep on, in terms of trying to figure out how should we tackle the challenge, because it is a real problem that we have to tackle, and that we have to tackle in this upcoming fiscal year. We have to change the policies to access grants, but we have the school system in need of some additional support. I was at a primary school recently, and the principal was asking for a pupil aid, because you have a special needs child in the regular school system, and the principal spends his entire day trying to hold down this child that just wants to run all over, a child that is looking to run into the toilet and to drink from the toilet bowl and all sorts of stuff. And so the principal spends his day holding down this child without there being pupil aides in the school. I've heard the stories, the cries. One mother at Mason Hall High, she got permission from the principal, went to OJT and got an aide to be with her child in the school system throughout, right up to exam. So we have to build out these policy frameworks, one, but two, we have to take some actions fast when it comes to special needs, because I am very concerned as a society we have not cared for special needs students sufficiently. It breaks my heart when I see where that school down at Bonaccord, that place is not fit for a school for special needs children. And in fact, one of the things I'm insistent on is that before September comes, that we find a way to start the work on a special needs school at Signal Hill. We just have to start. It is not fair to our people who are differently able that we don't have the facilities to cater for them. If we are an even society, we have to cater for all
Everybody.
of our people
Inclusion
equally.
matters.
Inclusion matters. Representation is important, and ensuring that they have a voice at the table. I've been to university, I've been to high offices all around the world where there are people who are differently able. How did they get there? They got there because somebody cared, and because they had systems that allowed them to be educated and trained and molded so that they too can get there. So it's possible. Being differently able doesn't necessarily mean you are sick beyond repair, or you have some infirmity. It's not leprosy. We ought to treat with people who are differently abled in a much more acceptable manner than we have so far. Now, I want us to take some questions or comments off of the social media accounts. And I know we have, this show should be an hour and 30 minutes. We have about 10 minutes thereabout. But there are some things I want us to talk about. Well, one, yes, the health centers do the testing for diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol. So that's why I said you could go to the health centers and get your vitals done. Right? So thanks for emphasizing that. There is a comment, the education system needs to create positions like safety officer for schools. There are safety officers in schools. In secondary schools, there are safety officers.
Yes,
right? And maybe a 7 to 9 a.m. and a 2 to 4:30 p.m. shift. The 7:45 drop off to get to work for 8 a.m. It's hard on parents. So one of the things people are raising, I mean, they might need some clarity there. One of the things people are raising is the issue of times for school drop off and pick up. So I think it's in that vein that they're talking about safety officers. Because if the parent has to get to work for 8 and school starts at what, 8?
The child has to be there on time.
The child has to be there on time.
Before time.
Before time, in order for the parent to also be on time and be productive. So it can't, I mean, I understand, I was a teacher. So I understand what the teacher is saying. You can't expect me to come and sit down here from 7 o'clock in the morning because you have to go to work. I had trying to drop off too. Somebody say about my family and my child, I can't come out here and sit down and wait on your child, and I can't stay back after school and wait on you to come after 4 to pick up your child. So those might be areas. So you talk about policies for childbearing and so on, and education. That's a good point. A good point, Mr. McPherson, or Miss McPherson, Heidi McPherson, apologies. Good point to raise because it's something that we need to look at. Papa, you were saying something?
I was saying about the security. What is the use of the security in school?
Well, the securities tend to secure the physical compound and ensure nobody steals things from the school.
Yeah, but the security should able, if I drop my child in for 7 or 6:30, the security should able to, and not actually like, but should able to look over the child.
Well, the thing is about having trained adults and the right personnel to do that sort of monitoring. And the security may not be, it may have some motherly ones, but security may not always be the best person to do the watching over. At the secondary school level, that's fine because the child is much older and has a measure of independence. But at the primary and preschool level, it will require a bit more sensitivity in the selection of who are those individuals to assist with, you know, managing
the pastoral
the pastoral care. Thank you for that. That is needed. So let me go through again. Telemedicine, that was raised, and that too could help with reducing wait time.
Yes.
Because there are some things that I think a telephone call to a doctor, and in the day and age we live in, we could video call the doctor.
But that's what I was doing during COVID.
No, but COVID taught us so many effective ways of getting around that we need to retain some of those
medical
measures.
consultations online.
Correct.
And it
correct.
was working.
Someone said the hospital is too cold. Colder than winter in New York.
I agree.
So,
You just have to go with your jacket.
yes, so central air might need to work on that. Right, I would love to hear if any of the panelists are single mothers and how their salaries have been impacted. Are there single mothers in this space? Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
Single mothers. How is it as a single mother?
Budgeting is number one. So a lot of the things that I would have learned, you know, taking on, not that the boy's dad isn't supporting as he should, but having somebody having a two-head household cut into one is something totally different. So what I do, this is just my take on it, I live on a budget less than my income because I always keep cognizant that I have to have something for the rainy day. In case any of the boys, I have to run, I have to call, I have to do this, I have to do that. So even if my salary is impacted, I live way below, right? The budget I had when I was in Trinidad is the budget I maintain now. Because to me, I just want...
Even with your promotion?
Even with my promotion, I want...
Even with your big manager pay?
That's very smart.
I want to maintain a degree of, okay, if anything is to happen, I have that space and that okay, because it's not easy to know that something is wrong with your baby and you can't do anything in the moment because of a financial situation. So I always sort of I budget. If this month I want to put in shoes and I see a dress that I like, I will say, no, I'll do the dress next month. Right? If it is the boys want Skittles, you say no, we go for fruits, that kind of thing. So it's budgeting. That has totally helped me. And I like nice things. So I had to understand that I had to prioritize the importance of...
women like nice things?
I had to prioritize the importance of my son's stability. Because I don't like to ask and get no. And I have a problem with that. So
But,
it's always
you know,
having that.
Allow me, ladies, to raise that issue, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. And I don't want the feminists in this space to take this the wrong way. And no, Dr. Faith, you don't have to be squinging thinking I will say something politically incorrect and gender insensitive. The point I want to make, however, is family and family development and the focus of the government on family development and how that works. It does not mean that the government ought to get into people's bedrooms, but the government should concern about what's on people's kitchen counters and what they could have in their pantries. But family development has to go beyond that. How do we encourage stable family life? And that stable family life may vary in how it looks. In that many of us in the Tobago space grew up in very extended family households.
Yes.
So many of us did not have mommy and daddy and siblings alone. We had grandfather, grandma, auntie, uncle, cousins, and in one sort of household. But that in itself at one point provided rather some measure of stability.
Yes.
Because in the household, it meant that several people are contributing towards the groceries. Somebody take the light bill, somebody take the water, child care.
Yes.
Costs are slashed. I mean, I don't tell my father who retired, say, hey, when baby come, you know, you have to mind some baby, right? Because you ain't have a parrot on a stick to see about
Because I certainly
and nothing to say about.
I certainly couldn't do it without the help of the boy's grandma.
Grandma, you see?
Yeah.
Because they play a role.
Yes.
And so when I talk about family development and the role of family and why it's so important, I'm not trying to pressure anybody into getting married, and I'm not saying that a woman should have to get married to be able to manage a household. All I'm saying is that when we take time as a community to pay attention to the constructs of our families, and we take time to ensure that families are stable, then we get some of the support that we need. In fact, let me break it down in another example. And I'm switching gears and targeting the men on this one. Imagine, men, for a second, if you have all your children in one household versus having your children all over the place. You know, so we like to knock about the place and make children all over and cause one of them headache, right? Think about it for a moment. With all your children in one household, you could go to the supermarket and with $100 buy the largest pack of dairy or Clim for $90-something, and that will share among all the children in the household. But when they're all over the place, you have to buy a pack of milk over there, a pack of milk over here, a pack of milk over north side, and all over the place. And therefore, the economics of family life says that when we are under one household, that there is greater strength in numbers. Even when it comes to long-term mortgages, because as bright as I am, as well employed as I have been for a while in my life, the bank will not take my salary solo to give me that long-term mortgage that I need. And the last checks I made some random checks. I won't tell you who are calling the banks, but I called some of my friends in the bank and they said, how much money do I need if I am to buy an average home on the island for around 1.35 million thereabout? How much money do I need to be able to access that mortgage? One bank said I need a salary of around $25,000. Another one said I need a salary of close to $30,000. You need your down payment money, important.
Closing fees.
You need your closing fees and insurance and legal fees.
To furnish, all of that.
Fees to furnish and so on. And then when I check it out, I say, hey boy, you really can't buy a house as a single person in the society. It's like you have to merge income. But again, the Tobago lived experience has been. And we have seen it. We have seen it where we have the family home and then one of us decide to build something on the piece of land in the back, and then everybody come and help me, you know, bill and the labor cost goes down.
System.
So there are benefits to having stronger family life. And again, there's nothing in what I've said there is nothing there is meant to demand of women or men anything. It's just a very practical observation that where there is strong family ties and a unit, you can have better economics in the family.
But even outside of the economics, let's look at our young people, which you know I'm specialized in that area. When you look at the homes of some of our at-risk youth or delinquent youth, it usually goes back to, the norm would be a single parent household, right? So imagine being a mother, you're trying really hard to put food on the table, but on the other hand, you can't even watch the child on the block, they not nobody to help them with homework, and that is really the reality. I would have spoken on a talk about single mothers and some of the plights that they you know, but one of the reasons why our broken homes are broke, you don't have money to put on the table, and instead of prioritizing probably being a mother or father because you're working so hard, there's no care for the children. They're doing whatever they want. There's nobody to ground the values and stuff because the aim is to put food on the table. And because you cannot share that burden or experience with someone else, it is causing some real damage in our households. So you're so correct in terms of family value or what we see as the family unit being stronger, but it also comes back to that village, because a lot of single mothers are single mothers for a reason. Let's just put it like that, because we could talk about being persons who are, you're a single mother for a reason.
Let me drink some
right? And you're a single mother who makes things happen, because whereas the man may contribute if he so desires, as a mother, when you had them two eyes looking up at you and they want something, you had to make that happen. You understand where I'm coming from? So that's the reality. But then, like I was saying, the village has to come in, and your village doesn't necessarily have to be that traditional extended family, but we had to start looking out for each other on those parts, you know, the youth organizations, the older persons within the village probably could come in, but we had to have some kind of structure in place, or some kind of strategy to help with this, because you're seeing the effects of it within the schooling system, not of our children who are defiant, who are giving trouble when we go back and we go to the households, single parents, right? And then when they're talking to mommy working 3 jobs, she can't discipline this child. It's a lot of issues that goes with it, and now more than ever it's more difficult, because you could barely put food on with these prices and all of these hikes. It's harder for the average single person to really be present sometimes as parents when they're dealing with all of these financial burdens. Imagine their mental health as well.
I'm thinking as well as though there's no one size fit all for every situation.
Correct.
But we can also look at utilizing sport, utilizing other activities to get the at-risk to come. Because if the single mom can't do it, or even the moms in relationships cannot get it done, falling back on the community concept. Everybody has a role in molding the new generation, because as we move on, they take over, and we have to ensure that the jewels of our future are being taken care well. So while, and I want to reinforce, it's not any one person, it's all of us, but we can also utilize a lot of the activities. When I was in primary school, we had brownies. When I don't know if that is something that is still active,
in some of the schools,
right? You have the Kiwanis Club, you have the sport, girls, and pushing girls, because we look at sport as generally a male-dominated environment. I can't tell the last I've seen a netball tournament. I can't tell the last I've seen us push the females forward as it relates to sport, and we can just start now. utilizing those smaller and going back to the old time saying drop, full in basket. If we look at it, it doesn't have to be perfect, but we must start. I think we will have a chance.
And as someone in chat said, we should not forget the church as a critical social institution.
Indeed.
One of those that have a role to play. And the church, in preaching, thus saith the Lord, has to also preach humanity and how we treat with some of these social issues. It's not enough to keep crusades. Where are the VBSs? What are the mothers in the church doing, and the fathers in the church? The church has to also stand against abuse and stand against some of the things that are befalling our women folk. Stand up for women and help with the training and the skills training, and help with the sharing and the partnership, the lend hand and the susus, the real susus, not the pyramid fake scheme susus, and assist with even some of the life skills that has to be taught. All our social institutions have to be part of that. Now, at that time, we're close to the end. So I want you to add things that you think we should also consider in the budget. It may be related to youth and what you think young women may want. Because you're young, Yolani, you're in charge of a youth group, Alana. It may be related to your role as a mother or as a professional woman. Because on set tonight, we had a young entrepreneur in Yolani. We had a business educator and life coach and youth leader in Alana. We had a professional woman, career woman in Tanil. And we also have Pam Pam, my darling Pam Pam, who represent our workers at the lower end of the spectrum. So we had quite a diverse set tonight. So are there other areas that we can look at? And then I'll recap all of the areas that we spoke about tonight, and then indicate what will happen for our next episode. So I don't know who wants to start.
I could go
Sure.
first. So I would like to see definitely, because we spoke a lot about opportunities that currently are not being taken care of in the current sphere of things. So as it relates to childcare and childcare for special needs and those particular things. So pushing education definitely, because as a woman, and I believe in being educated and having that particular wield to make your choice, because it comes down to economic empowerment, and that's making a choice. So to have those opportunities based on what we as the Tobago society really need, but there are opportunities. So we could probably do some job labeling, getting the grants as well as the educational push to say, hey, we have these are opportunities. I see it all the time online. International calling for nurses, calling for educators, but we have opportunities here that we could start to put people in. Of course, childcare, because I could not do what I did on my own. Thank God for the social support I had. Ruth Prince, I must call your name, but when I was in Trinidad, it was because of her. So I would want to definitely have that on the sphere of things, because we all have dreams, but we cannot get them done if we don't have the necessary support. And while I was fortunate enough, I would love to see all other women being given those particular opportunities in absence of a sturdy, strong social support, as well as grants for other vocational and technical training, because it's clear. Hairdressing, of course, is Mrs. Hairdressing, and these things are actual, for want of a better word, entrepreneurial avenues that we can structure and market. Yes, and what are the people without being able to feed ourselves? And there are many sub businesses that could come out of just agriculture. So maybe we need to just take a mass look of all the areas we need to fill and have a strategy in supplying that support as a government, as a private sector, and as a community on a whole. How can we manage what we have?
Certainly. Thank you. Yolani.
Okay. So one thing I wanted to touch on, I know you spoke about the productivity levels of public servants. And quite frankly, most public servants, they can't survive on their salary alone. So most of them have like a side job. They might be doing hair, well in my case I bake, so I bake in. They might be cooking, they might be doing barbering and stuff like that. And where the productivity level is concerned, it might not be their dream job, but it's what works for them or what is helping them to finance their business on the side. So what can be put in place for them to now develop the side business further and eventually move on from the public service into the private sector and now be able to employ other persons. So I think in that sense, having some kind of transition from, okay, this is not necessarily a dream job, but it's helping you finance what you want to actually do, to transition over there and then into the private sector would be a good
It's
thing.
interesting you should raise that, Yolanda.
Why?
Because a year ago, in 2020 going into 2021, I proposed a scheme by which we could help people matriculate out of the public sector into the private sector, where I said, look, this is optional, not forcing anybody. I say, look, you have this dream business you want, we will support you. We'll give you the training, we'll give you the hand-holding. You are a public servant, we will support you. Your first year, we allow you to work half of the time with us and the other half with your business. We pay you at least 50% of your salary. And second year, we pay you a little less, but allow you a little bit more time with your business. Because we know when business start up, you don't ever get a chance to pay yourself in the first year or so of your business. You tend to not be able to sustain the business and pay yourself, salary yourself. And we work our way to the place where you're able to successfully say, I am ready to leave, and you do your business full time, and you leave the public sector. When I said it, some people bashed me and said it sounded like when I told people I would fire everybody in the public sector, but the idea was, it's an option of course, and the idea was always that so I became very shy about the idea, but the truth is, I really want there to be an avenue that if you're in the public sector, and you feel that there's something I can do that will earn me more money, then why shouldn't I? I always use the example of the wedding planner I used to my wedding, Asha Mars. She was employed in the division of education. That's where I first met her. She was working in the division of education. Where is she now? She's working completely on her own. And I'm certain what she makes now as a private citizen surpasses what she was paid as a public servant. And I'm confident that if public servants have the opportunity where they can matriculate into their private business and do it well and get their hand holding and some support until the business is off and running, many will opt to leave the public sector altogether and do that which they love and that which they have a passion about. So I'm happy you raised it in your own way, because for a while I felt like it was a silly idea because some in the space was louder with their nonsense saying, look, it means you're firing people. When in truth and fact, all I want to do is to give the public servant an opportunity to decide at some point down the road, do I really want to stay in the public service or do I want to do something better for myself? And it goes to even the CPF workers all the way down. Because in my mind, people must grab at the opportunity to earn more than they are earning now. And I'm not saying go out and sell drugs. I am not that capitalist in my outlook, right? I am very socialist in some of my outlook, but at the same time, we have to provide people with that avenue through which they can feel comfortable to do their own business. So thank you for raising that. Right?
I have
Sure.
no
problem.
Thing. I know we also touch on skills and how important skills is. And being a person who has been in different programs, I think also you can enter a program and learn a skill. I think it's also important for, I guess, the persons who facilitate in the program to follow up with these persons, because you do a skill and what after, maybe you might start your business, but how do you scale your business? And do you know if you register your business, you could have access to grants, you could you could even start, open a bank account, and that could come as an additional income when you're going to take a loan. So I think instead of just having a skill or going and have a skills, you could take it further, and yeah, basically.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, well, you're just quiet on me this evening and have all this brilliant idea.
So I guess
Beautiful mind.
what I came with in my mind, it is nothing like that. So I'm just trying to adjust and, okay, well, I wanted to raise that point, but somebody cover it again, you can't touch it again. So it's just...
That's fine. Brilliant as always.
Well, Yulani actually took some of the words out of my mouth. What I find happening here in Tobago in particular, for points, we would have persons go through a skills training program, and hundreds would, they would graduate. But what happens after? And I think that there should have a clear plan or a clear path for these persons. It should be made mandatory when you come to the skills-based program that you are taught how to monetize the skill. So you're not just learning how the trading itself, but where do I move in terms of how do I start a business? How do I manage my business finances? How do I scale my business? Because a lot of persons, we spend the money to train them, but they're still not able to properly monetize it in such a way that it's making sense for them. So I think that with our business programs, we need to, or skills training programs, it should be a partnership with our business educators and our entrepreneurs, where we move them from learning the skill, giving them the knowledge and training needed to start a business, and possibly some kind of grant to get them going and starting up. So there is follow through with it, and then we can actually see that we're creating a private sector, and then at least for like the first 3 years work alongside it, because that's the most sensitive period. I have seen a lot of entrepreneurs that have businesses and they don't know how to manage their business finances, so they cannot grow and they're in the same spot over and over again. Particularly for our women, what I would like to see is not just teaching the skills but how do I get my business online? If we could get our women or mothers at least to work from home and leverage the internet and the digital era, then we could have our mothers at home keeping an eye on their children but still making money. So we need to stress to some extent, how do we get these home-based businesses to make sense where you're making money, you don't have these large overheads, but then you're leveraging the internet, social media, whatever. So our training for our entrepreneurs also need to transition into the digital space. I am seeing us backtracking. For COVID, we adjusted somewhat. So the businesses that survived were the businesses who were able to go online to adjust. And the ones that fell behind are the ones who were refused or didn't have the know-how to get online. And now that things are up, we're seeing the backtrack. But we need to propel with that and put the different mechanisms in place to train our businessmen along those ends. The last point that I'm going to make is our battered women or women who are victims of gender-based violence, etc. And what is the avenue for them, right? A lot of women, they are stuck in their situations because it's tied to money, right? He beaten me and I want to leave him, but I have no money, I have no place to go, right? What about the shelters that we have here? What is the transition system for a battered woman? The same way. All right, so I am in a terrible relationship. I may not have the qualifications, etc. needed to move forward. What is the process? From the time I say, okay, I'm leaving, who helps me in terms of shelter? Who helps me get back on my feet, to get employed? How am I taking care of the children? And we need to have something more structured in place so that women know that there is a system that they can look to if they want out, right? Because a lot of persons are stuck in whatever they're in because there is no way out, and I cannot see me having a stable life for me and my children if I don't take the licks that I get in.
And you know, it's interesting you should raise that. On Thursday this week, a lady came to my office, and I see so many people. When I have a public day, sometimes my public days start in the morning at 9, 10, and after 11 in the night, I'm still there. That's how long it is. And a lady came to my office on Thursday, and she said perhaps the most crass or honest statement. She said, the young boy gave me $600. I had to take me licks. You give me $600, I ain't walking nowhere, and I need the $600, right? And they say just cuss me up and treat me bad, but I want the $600. That is all I have. That's me. Come on, no work. Where you want me to do?
She want that.
And she made that statement. Well, Pam is the fair that's not going to be her story. But the thing is, some women don't have that kind of fighting spirit, especially when their life experiences have been a particular way. So it's something that we have to consider when we're looking at public policy, when we're looking at fiscal measures, when we're looking at strategies for family development. It's something that we have to look at. So Pam, last up.
Well, actually, what I was about to say, the young lady just said concerning the domestic violence, that's what I really wanted to talk about. She already done pop it, so.
Okay. So, lady.
I have one more thing I would like to, like the fruits and them, because everything just keep wasting. You can't get factory like to do some, everything, mangoes, breadfruit, just name all the fruits. People don't young children don't eat fruits against all just down the drain.
Tatco, I hope you're listening, eh? I went down to where the old juicy factory was with a team from Tatco, and I said to them, you all need to move post-haste on processing of these agricultural goods. Because you're right, they're wasting all over. I went up to Castara some afternoon to in an area where URP workers do some farming. And I mean, first the tree them full of mango falling off the people tree and dropping on the people Prado, just dropping. We had to move the vehicle from the road. Then it's dropping off, literally littering the place. And there isn't an avenue at the moment for which we could cash in on these fruits. And it does not mean that we have to have large, extensive fruit farms all over the island. But the same concept with the breadfruit that Tatco is using, where people plant breadfruits in the backyard, breadfruit trees in the backyard. If we collecting the fruits, people bring a bucket of fruit somewhere ever, and we do the pulsing of them, the pulping of them, the preserving of them, the cutting of them, cold storage of them. So many options: nectars, jams, jellies. So many options. We once had a craft market idea that somehow went out the window. And we could look at all of those avenues as well. I want to thank you ladies for being here tonight. We discussed quite a lot tonight. We looked at everything from women working at the lower end of the spectrum. We look at poverty eradication. We look at productivity issues. We look at digitization. We look at healthcare. We look at family development. We look at business models. We look at getting people to transition out of the public sector into their own businesses. So that they're not thieving the government time to do their business work, but that they're giving their due time for the pay they're receiving. We look at wages. We looked at children with disabilities and own special needs children. We looked at a lot of things: child care, childbirth, birthing experiences, all of those things we look at. And your contributions have been invaluable to the budgeting process that we're doing, because we're doing a social budget. We're doing a budget that is aimed at taking care of all people, because if we don't take care of each other, no one else will. That has been the history and the story of Tobago and our relationship with people elsewhere. We have to take care of ourselves. For those of you who were online and who looked on in your hundreds and sent your comments, please know that we are also analyzing and taking the comments of social media. One question I wish to answer before we wrap up. the question of what's happening with food cards. Food cards are now under the division of health, social wellness, hold on, am I forgetting? Health, wellness, and social protection, right? Food cards is now under health, wellness, and social protection. And so they're not with the division of finance because they did not belong with the division of finance in the first place. A core fit for them will be where health and social services are being treated with, and even the policies for those distribution we are looking at. In fact, we're looking to phase out food cards and looking at e-wallet systems, which means that pretty soon you'll be able to go to the grocery with your smartphone and you go in by Viewport, Yolani, or Penny Savers, or Cost Cutters, or Cards, or one of them that accept our food cards. Pablo supermarket up in the east, and they just scan it from your phone, ping, ping, ping. And I must say, Ms. Harilal, that FCB Bank is the bank that is working with us in trying to make that possible and to introduce perhaps the single largest e-wallet facility in the country, starting with us in our food card program and our social services program, because we're hoping to use that similar format for distribution of social services. So all these paper checks and so on, you will get your money sent directly to you. And so that's an important observation I think I should make. Tomorrow night, I am going to be hearing from some of the creatives down at Shaw Park. We're looking at how we monetize culture, the orange economy as some people call it. We're looking at that. Remember, we have 7 episodes of Make It Make Sense. The last episode will be the autonomy and the economy. So we are doing all of this and building up to a nice crescendo with the autonomy and the economy. You don't want to miss any one of these virtual consultations. I remind you as well that tomorrow we have 2 face-to-face consultations. In the morning at 10 a.m., I have contractors in this space. So if you're a contractor, if you know a contractor, whether you're a small contractor, big contractor, medium-sized contractor, or you're not trying to be a contractor, call the contractor. Come out tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. down at the Division of Finance, Trade and Economy, up at the Penthouse, where I'll be sitting with you and hearing your thoughts for some of the plans and projections for the island going forward. And at 1 p.m. tomorrow, we have the private sector there. So we invited the Chambers of Commerce, we invited insurance agencies, we invited the bank managers. Hope you got the invitation. Ms. Harilal, if not, consider this your invitation. We invited the bank managers and the Hotel Association and Tourism Association. So we literally want all the private sector people in the room, because I do feel strongly that Tobago needs a stronger private sector. And I want to hear from you and also share with you some thoughts about how we can build the private sector and make it stronger so the burden is lifted off of the THA. I want to thank you all for listening. Thank you all for participating. This certainly has been different. We didn't get a chance to eat L'Onction's beautiful food, all the lovely gold leaves and so on in the cocoa, what do you call it? I can't remember the name, but it's cocoa something, cocoa tea something, right? So we will get to eating, and thank you so much for joining us. Who in the kitchen does feel the heat, and we heard from those who are in the kitchen. So thank you very much. Have a good night. God bless you. Please have a productive week ahead. Go to the People Walk early tomorrow morning, and let's get to work on Tobago's business and making Tobago the greatest little island on the planet. Thank you, and God bless you.